Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity. I'm here now to rank Star Trek's villains or adversaries. So this video is a part of a series of videos where I rank the various characters from the various Star Trek shows on the various positions. I did stuff like Captain, Doctor, Helmsman, Chief Engineer. But I'm sort of getting to the end now where I decided I should rank the adversary. Dun dun dun. So, so basically I take one villain from each of the Star Trek shows, and I'm going to rank them in order to who I think was the most effective villain. So that is not which character I personally preferred, but moreover, who's the best at being the thorn in the side to our heroes? Who's the best at being an adversary and throwing up obstacles for our heroes to overcome? So let me go through the list of the characters that I will be ranking. As always, I only choose one character from each show, which is a pain because I can't put Weyoun in here because I have to have Gul Dukat, Weyoun, the female changeling, Sloane. Like, Deep Space Nine has a lot of amazing. In fact, I could put all of Deep Space Nine's villains at the top. But unfortunately, I gotta just do or an Auburn-Tane. Oh my god! But unfortunately, I'm just gonna do one villain per show. So the list of villains I shall be ranking. Oh, Damar. I didn't even mention Damar. Anyway, sorry. So the list of the villains I will be ranking are from the original series: Khan! From the Next Generation, Q. From Deep Space Nine, Gul Dukat. From Voyager, Cesca. From Enterprise, Commander Dolam. From Discovery, Captain Lorca. And from Picard, Arissa. Now, Discovery was a tricky one because, I don't know, there wasn't any one standout villain. And Lorca was he was the captain at first, but then he became a villain. Or you could also have Emperor Georgiou, but she's kind of an uneasy ally. Or you could have that third season Orion woman, but she would that twirl looking her mustache. What a terrible villain. So no, I went with Lorca. Anyway, or Control, but Control, that's not even a person, is it? Anywho, let me go ahead. And yeah, for Voyager, I went with Cesca, not the Borg Queen, because screw the Borg Queen. Cesca was definitely the better villain of Voyager. Anywho, let's go ahead and rank the villains. Oh, yeah, and then there's Khan. Khan, of course, only appeared in one episode of the original series, but he appeared in the movie as well, so he's like the only character from the original series that appeared more than once, and plus he's the most iconic classic, so you gotta go Khan. Anywho, let's go ahead and rank these characters from my least favorite to my favorite, well, not favorite, but from who I think is the best. We'll start with, at the bottom of the list, Arissa from Star Trek Picard, who was a terrible villain. She was really two-dimensional. She was just like, oh, I'm evil. They tried to flesh out a bit more by having her have this background in the Jacques Voss and how she really wanted to, save humanity from, or not humanity, of course, she's a Romulan, save all sentient life in the galaxy. Was it the galaxy? Whatever. From this evil AI, but she did, of course, she was just too stereotypical evil, and the whole thing with her having, like, a sexy relationship with her brother, like, that, it seemed like they were just trying to be like Game of Thrones. That made no sense. It was just, I don't know, this is a terrible character. Anyway, next person on my list is Lorca. Now, I do like Lorca, and I thought as a character he was really interesting. As a captain, he was really interesting. But the reason why he comes second to bottom on the list is because I think the reveal of him being from the mirror universe, where and all of a sudden he turns like an evil, and not really caring about anything else and just wanting to rule the mirror universe. I think that kind of ruined his character. I gotta be honest. I thought that was a stupid reveal. A lot of people predicted it, and I was like, no, that's not true. Your theory sucks. Your theory's not true. But they were right. And I didn't want their theory to be right, which is why I kept saying that, because it's stupid. I think it ruins the character. I think it was much more interesting as a asshole captain than a straight out mirror universe mustache twirling villain. But that's just me. Anyway, next on the list is Khan, and I can hear everyone getting pissed off right now, but I'm sorry. I think Khan's overrated. That's just me. I mean, he's a good villain. He's okay. You like Ricardo Montalban going, Kirk. Oh yeah, I didn't even mention the frickin' Into Darkness appearance of Khan. So it's actually 3 times. But anyway, that was Benedict Cumberbatch who actually played him better. I'm sorry, but it's true. I've been waiting for this moment for 25 years. I'd take Benedict Cumberbatch, because acting over that any day of the week, I am very sorry. Anywho, that's neither here nor there. I think Khan's overrated. Now, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is objectively the best Star Trek movie of all time. Anyone who says it isn't is just trying to be a contrarian. Now, I'm just kidding. Of course, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but no, I'm not kidding. It's actually objectively the best movie of all time. Anyway, that's true, but it's not because of Khan. Like, Khan just happens to be in it, and the movie just happens to be named after him. The villain, the character himself, I mean, sure, he's the driving force in the movie, but he's not what makes the movie great. What makes the movie great is Kirk and Spock and their interactions, and McCoy and the character journey that Kirk goes through, and his dealing with this threat of Khan, and how he sort of outsmarts his Superman undefeatable villain. So the movie, what makes the movie great is Kirk, not Khan. Khan's kind of, I mean, he's good, obviously. He works for the movie. If he didn't work, the movie wouldn't be so great. But doesn't make him a great villain. Space Seed, I think, is the most overrated episode of the original series. I think the only reason why people like it is because of the Wrath of Khan. If the Wrath of Khan didn't exist, Space Seed would be kind of another forgotten episode. The only reason everyone tries to say it's one of the greatest episodes of the original series is because of the Wrath of Khan. That's it. But of course, again, that's just my opinion. Because Space Seed wasn't even all that interesting. I'm sorry, I actually preferred Garth of Izar as the best villain of the original series. So if we're leaving out the movies and we're just talking about the show, I prefer Garth of Izar. He thought, I am not an insect. I love Garth of Izar. Khan was kind of just like forgettable. I'm sorry. Anyway, he's definitely better than Arissa Lorca. That's for dang sure. And in fact, the next entry I'm gonna say, it's kind of a tie between him and Khan. Like I couldn't decide which one to choose, and so I just very narrowly put Khan beneath him. But anywho, let's get into the next entry that says kind of tied for Khan, but slightly above, which is Commander Dolam from Star Trek Enterprise. Now, he is the Xindi reptilian, and in some ways, yes, he is kind of a mustache-twirling villain, but I love the Xindi arc, especially the end of it. I think it was amazing and really worked. But what made me reconsider putting him above Khan is that he's kind of, this whole Xindi story arc in Season 3 of Enterprise is kind of an analogy for 9/11. And so Dolam, I see him as kind of an analogy of the hardliners, of the, jihadists, the hardliners who are just brainwashed with the religious doctrine and don't really, and aren't able to listen to reason. They're so convinced that they're right, they're willing to kill people for it, which is what we see towards the end of the season, because even when he's presented with evidence that the people he considered gods are betraying him and actually wanting to eventually kill off the Zindi for their own benefit, he refuses to see it. He refuses to believe, in fact, kills his own people just so he can destroy Earth, because he's so sold on the notion that his gods won't betray him. And of course they're offering him power, that also helps. But that part of it makes him a really good analogy for these hardliners of any, whatever religion or creed or political spectrum you want to see. The hardliners who are just so indoctrinated and impossible to reason with. So in that case, I think he was an effective villain, even though those outfits, the costumes they had for the Zindi reptilians were god awful. But and it did come off as stereotypical villains sometimes, but that aspect of it is what gave him the slight edge to me. And by the way, Khan's outfits in Wrath of Khan, not so great either, by the way. Anywho, let's get into the next entry on my list, which is Cesca from Voyager. And I do like her. I think she's by far the best villain that Voyager had, and I wish they would have kept her longer. I think, again, there are times where she does come off as a mustache-twirling villain, but especially the whole time she's like, I impregnated myself with your child, Chakotay. Like, that whole thing was pretty dumb. But I for the most part, it was an interesting concept of having a Cardassian who happened to be spying on the Maquis, who got caught up in this Delta Quadrant, and so she was posing as a member of Voyager's crew until she found an opportunity to try to get home, and that, of course, she would be totally against the Federation dogma that was keeping them from instantly returning home, and that she would go seek out people who were more willing to do what's necessary to get home as quick as possible, or if she can't get home, to kind of become the queen of this area. And the way she manipulated the Kazon, like Kola and other people, was very Cardassian-like, and I think that dynamic was really interesting. Now, I talked about this before, but when they killed off Cesca at the last minute, and when the actress just found out that her character was getting killed off like the minutes before they were filming the scene, of course she was not happy. That was a really shit thing to do to her, by the way. But I wish they hadn't killed her off. Get rid of the Kazon, sure, the Kazon suck. But my idea is that they should have had her, like Voyager, kidnap, or not kidnap, but apprehend is the better word. Apprehend her and like throw her in the brig, and then realize, oh, what should we do with her? And then she becomes like a kind of like a Giorgio type character, but done way better. And more adversarial, where Cesca is more adversarial, they can't trust her, but she's trying to do any angle she can to try to manipulate the Voyager crew. I think that would have been an interesting storyline. I mean, at the very least for one season. Maybe they could have 86'd her once they got brought on 7 of 9. But I think they should have done that. I don't think they should have killed her off. She was too good of a villain. Anyway, let's get on to number 2, second best villain in Star Trek, or adversary, I think is a better word, particularly for this character, and that's Q. Now I can hear some of you saying, well, is Q really a villain? I mean, and that's a valid question, which is why I prefer the word adversary, but you can even say, is he really an adversary? I say yes. I say yes, he is, even though he is not a straight-out villain like the ones I mentioned before, they all are in direct opposition to our crew, and they are trying to work against them, and they want to defeat them. Whereas Q, of course, if he wanted to defeat our heroes, all he had to do is snap his fingers. I mean, he is definitely a lot more adversarial and villainous in Encounter at Farpoint when he first appears, and even a little bit in his next appearance in Hide and Q. But the more he appears, the more he becomes more of a hindrance rather than a straight out opposition. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, as I said, like I suggested they do that with Cesca, I think that's actually a very interesting dynamic. And of course, towards the end of the show, he outright tries to help Picard and the crew, but he does it in a way that is a bit sort of underhanded and causes obstacles for our heroes to overcome. Like Tapestry, when Picard, he sort of did this backhanded thing with time travel in order to get Picard to realize that the events in his past needed to happen, and then in All Good Things, he basically puts the whole galaxy at risk. Although I don't think they'd ever let the galaxy be destroyed, but he claims to, just to sort of try to test Picard's potential. So even though it's not a straight out villain wanting to defeat him, he still sort of is adversarial and has obstacles in the crew. And of course, he's an amazing character who works really well doing so. So yeah, definitely the second best adversary of the Star Trek franchise. So we'll get into my number one, which I kind of spoiled with the intro. But of course, you gotta, anyone who knows me and anyone who has a brain should guess that this would be number one. Gul Dukat. Definitely the best villain of the Star Trek franchise. Even, I think people give his season 7 storyline too hard of a shake. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but I still like some people who outright refuse to acknowledge it and say Gul Dukat died in season 6 and all the bullshit with him going crazy about the Pal race is some other character. But I think that's nonsense. I honestly, for me, Gul Dukat's weakest moments were in season 4 when they started to make him more sort of more of an ally to the crew. That didn't work to me. This was a mass murderer responsible for genocide and working whole peoples to death and would constantly abduct and rape women. He's not our friend. And so that's what made me. And then I had some videos like trying to say, "Oh, is Dukat actually a villain?" I'm like, "Are you fucking serious? He's a fucking he commits genocide." And he rapes women. No! He's straight out. He's as villain as a villain could get. He's as evil as a villain could possibly get. So, which is why I kind of didn't mind his season 7 storyline, because he's, it was the season 4 storyline that bothered me when he was trying to be all like an ally to the crew. No, he's not your friend! But the rest of the show, particularly in the earlier seasons and in the later seasons, but of course the best was during the Dominion War story arc in season 6. He was an amazing villain, and that's probably what elevates that story arc of the Dominion takeover of the station over everything else. And the show is Gul Dukat. And pairing him with Wayun was a stroke of brilliance, by the way. They having the two together was always amazing scenes, and Mark Alima was an amazing actor. So I don't care what anyone says. Even this season 7 story arc when he was with Kai Wynn, I think that made sense. I think that was a good pairing. Fight me on that one, but I'm standing by that. Anyway, so best villain of the Star Trek franchise, Dukat! Anyway, that is it for my video on the best villains of the Star Trek franchise. So I only have one more or two more of these rankings left to do. I have the ships. That's the last one. And then, no, that's not the last one, because then I have the Mary Sue. I don't know if I should come up with a different title than that, because some people think that term has sexist connotations. Even I include a lot of males on this list. But anyway, I don't know. I think that I'll just keep it at Mary Sue. But anyway, those two lists are the ones I have left. Also, be sure to check out my channel for many more videos on Star Trek, as well as other shows such as The Expanse, Better Call Saul, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all that. And thanks a lot for watching.